Hey guys, John here. Just before we get started, I'd like to point out that if you have not seen The Rise of Skywalker, this movie, we will cover every single major spoiler in the movie. And if you don't want it spoiled for you, then don't watch this episode. Yeah, don't get mad at us if you watch this and you're like, oh, wait, they spoiled it, because I'm warning you now in advance. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up and let's just get right into the episode. Was the last podcast we did October?
It was. It was.
Dang, we are just peak consistency.
Hey, you know what? We do this for fun. We're not being paid, in case you guys were wondering, based on our 3 other podcasts. We do. I'm broke. Help, please.
Please send money. We can't pay our SoundCloud Pro. Well, welcome back to this episode of the Big Tech Guys podcast. I'm your host, John.
And other host, Garrett.
This episode is going to be spoiler filled because, well, we got a big movie to talk about.
Ye old Rise of Skywalker. I'm just going to preface this entire thing by saying that I am an enormous Star Wars nerd, alright? And with keeping that in mind, I'm going to be really diving into this sucker, alright? I can talk about some Star Wars, let me just tell you that. To start, I guess, my overall impressions on the movie are, it's fine. It's fun. It's a fun movie. It's not like not enjoyable or anything. I enjoyed my time in the theater watching it. Yeah, it's an enjoyable Star Wars movie. I think overall it's a fine movie. Just, was not my favorite. So my opinion is aight, but could be better. John, you want to state your opinion? Then we can go into each other's individual reasons as to why.
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I was really scared going into it, because Twitter had a thing on the search page or the explore page that was like, Rise of Skywalker reviews are coming in. And so I know you and I read a couple of them, and I was almost scared going into it that it was going to be much worse than it actually was. So I guess I had relatively low expectations for it going in, because seeing reviews from critics and that it was not that good, it was bland, and that there really wasn't anything special about it. And so I kind of went into it thinking I'm going to watch this movie regardless. That being said, I don't think it's going to be that good. It had a 50% by the critics. I think it still does on Rotten Tomatoes.
Around 53%.
And I enjoyed it. I thought that a lot of the critiques that I read from reviewers was slightly unjustified, because I didn't see a lot of the stuff that they were criticizing. I think the best way to sum it up is just, it feels like it's not a bad movie. It felt like J.J. Abrams was just dancing around every single thing that Rian Johnson accomplished in The Last Jedi. Because one of the best examples of that is Rose. Rose has a total of 4 lines in the entire movie. And she was quite possibly one of the most crucial characters in The Last Jedi. So I think that just sums up my take on it. It's not bad. I didn't think it was great. I just thought that it was like J.J. Abrams made his version for how 8 should have gone, and then also made 9 along with it in one movie.
He made a sequel for The Force Awakens is what he did.
Yeah.
My thing, really, with the movie, I have 2 primary issues. Number 1 is the pacing in the first third of the movie, I would say. It is light speed pace. Literally light speed. Even though they're actually doing light speed jumping. It is a light speed pace. Honestly, a fast, fun movie is good. It's just I can get behind that for just a fun movie. However, I think it was breakneck speed fast. I think if they had they blew past so many cool areas and cool scenes that could have been explored just a little bit more. They didn't need a full in-depth explanation or super long, lengthy section. It felt like you would watch a scene and it would be over in a minute and 30 seconds. Something that could have been a little bit more substantial, such as I don't know. I guess there's something to be said about it being good, not drawing things out too much. However, it feels rushed in the first third, and I think that is due to the vibe that I get from it, which is that JJ had an original plan for 7, 8, and 9. He didn't get to make 8. So he was like, well, I have my idea for 8 and 9, and I'm still going to do it anyway. Uh, and he managed to pull it off pretty all right. It's just it does sacrifice a lot of the pacing in the first bit because he's kind of just summing up what the resistance has been doing. The reason that it's just messed up. That's all. I mean, it's not necessarily a terrible thing. It doesn't ruin the movie. I mean, I still like it, obviously. It does mess with me. And the second thing I want to talk about is a certain major spoiler that, I mean, look, Rey being Palpatine and specifically the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, they made it work within the movie. Like within the context of just the movie, it feels fine. My only thing is, as just a general Star Wars fan, it feels like a cheap shot, kind of like, oh, the reason she had all this Jedi powers was because of Palpatine. Meh. The fact that it's Palpatine of all the characters, like I felt like they felt like they had to connect Rey to the general trilogy somehow. And honestly, I really don't think they needed to. You had Ben Solo. He's a Skywalker. It can still be the Skywalker saga with him there. He doesn't have to be the main character per se. But it still revolves around the Skywalkers, and he is one of the main characters even still. I don't think they needed to do that, like to justify it being the Skywalker saga or whatever. Or I think that it just feels like a cheap shot, kind of, because it's just I guess you could say it gets a little bit nitpicky when you start going, "Where's his son? Where's he been?" But like, still, it feels just like oh well, he had a son. We just never saw him. And to which you say, sure, fair enough. Technically, yeah, he could have. No one said that he did. Like he didn't have a son specifically. So that's why. That's why it quote unquote works in that sense. I just don't like that they had to connect. They like that they connected Rey to everything after all of what the Last Jedi did, which made a huge point about her being no one. And they made it like, and actually, I think that it was one of the better messages out of the movie. That you don't necessarily have to be some famous bloodline, and it made sense. It's like, just it's like talent. Some people just are gifted in the Force. There you go. It just felt like they're trying really hard to undo the Last Jedi, even the good parts, which really just made me. And believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, there are good parts in the Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is it's not all bad. In my opinion, it's super super good stuff contrasted with really really bad stuff that I just don't like, and then it all averages out to a really okay movie. Um, that I feel like if they had done a few different things with the movie, um, I would have been okay with the whole thing. Take a few things out. Looking at you, Canto Bite. That whole area it did not feel like Star Wars. It just didn't. There's a lot of stuff with it, and I could go on for a long, long, long time on The Last Jedi, but this is about The Rise of Skywalker. And The Rise of Skywalker, I feel like it tried way too hard to erase it. And that at the end of the day, the whole Rey being a Palpatine is product of that. And the fact that they had to bring back Palpatine. Palpatine, I love him. I really do. But bringing someone back from the dead, especially someone as dead as Palpatine was, falling down a reactor shaft, that's one thing. Darth Maul survived it. Fair enough. I'll give that to you. But the entire Death Star 2 exploded. It exploded. And he floated in space. So you're telling me someone just picked him up after falling down a generator, exploding in the generator, and then having the thing he exploded in explode. It's just he was super dead, like real dead. You can still enjoy the movie if you just forget about all of that because they don't explain it really. And they quoted the whole Darth Plagueis the Wise speech when he's like, "The dark side of the Force can lead to unnatural things." Basically, is what the quote is saying. The old classic Palpatine Episode 3 speech quote. And I feel terrible that I'm butchering it right now because I know it typically, but alas. And I remember in the theater, I was like, "That is Darth Plagueis's that's the Darth Plagueis speech right there," when he started saying it. Overall, just a bit of a cheap shot, in my opinion. There's my little mini rant. I'm gonna let you talk about your reasonings now, John.
Garrett, I swear, I think you just talked for 10 minutes straight.
Like I said, I can talk about it a while, and I didn't even get into The Last Jedi. I stopped.
So, my thing is, the whole Palpatine thing is frustrating on several levels for me. I thought it was a good element, and I think that, yeah, like you said, it works out well in the movie. Because I think what happened is J.J. Abrams got his big, large popcorn and his large drink for $40, and he sat down in the movie theater, and he's sitting there, and he's watching Rian Johnson kill off Snoke. He's like, well,
Yeah, right. That's honest. That's why they had to bring him back, and I think they could have gone a different direction with it. But if they want that boisterous, explosive final episode, like I know he wanted, you can't just have, Kylo Ren. You gotta have it be in a clear, objectively bad person as the bad guy. You can't have fantastic character, by the way, Kylo Ren, morally gray man. You can't have him be the enemy. No. Snoke is a really, really interesting thing because I don't know how to feel about it. At first, I didn't like that they killed Snoke because it was just like, what? Like, I thought he was going to be the big bad of this trilogy, and they just killed him in the second episode, which is a cool plot twist, but it really created some problems being a trilogy and all. I think the real main problem with The Last Jedi had to be countered was not Snoke, but the fact that Last Jedi didn't cover a lot of ground at all. Other than killing off Snoke, really all they did was you watched the immediate aftermath of Episode 7, which is them taking off from their base and just being on the run and surviving. It basically, it feels like a really drawn out TV show episode. As far as like as far as like plot, I don't know. That's its main issue. Like as far as being in a trilogy, being a second movie in a trilogy. That's my thing with it. It doesn't have enough. Like I don't know. It doesn't do enough in that regard. Because it's right after 7, and it doesn't show like the most that it does is with Rey and Luke on Octo, which is one of the best things in the movie, in my opinion. And yes, there's a lot of controversy about Luke and his portrayal, but I think that I liked it in that movie, at least based on the history that we were given, with him, having, minor PTSD or major PTSD actually from his Jedi training.
The Last Jedi, I liked how The Last Jedi started because I liked how, like, you watch 7 and then 8 starts right after 7. I like that. Though it didn't cover any ground, I thought that was a good, like, aspect of it. It gave me something to remember, and I was like, oh, this is what happened, like, literally, like, in the last movie 2 years ago. Like, it brought that back. My thing with the Rise of Skywalker was right off the bat, in the title crawl, they talk about how they've intercepted this signal from Palpatine or whatever, and I just felt like I literally just said, like, what? Because I felt like the title crawl was supposed to remind you of what was happening, and if not, get you started on what was happening. I felt like hearing Palpatine, that he's still alive, and like hearing that he's been like broadcasting these things across the galaxy, I felt like that was a crucial moment in the movie that just legitimately like was not shown at all. Because like you kind of get thrown into it. You get thrown straight into the first scene is Kylo Ren searching for I can't even pronounce the planet. He's searching for Palpatine and the planet that he resides on. Exegol. Like, that's the first thing that you see is him searching. If you had just kind of like been zoned out during the title crawl, you'd been like, well, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah, exactly.
The title crawl is supposed to like catch you up to speed and introduce what's going to happen next. That being said, you have to kind of like, you gotta help, like, you gotta show something as important as Palpatine broadcasting over the radio waves. And to me, it just feels lazy. Like, they just kind of decided later.
Okay, they did actually show the Resistance get the signal after Kylo talks to Palpatine. They show a scene of the talking to him. However, that first bit you would be pretty lost for the first 5 minutes. Actually, it's less than 5 minutes, I think. The entire I want to say it's 3 minutes. Maybe it is 5 minutes. Maybe it is just 5 minutes. Just Kylo Ren searching and finding and talking to Palpatine. It's maybe 5 minutes, I want to say.
I mean, I thought it was well shot. I thought it was I thought it was really well done. Like finding and like the environments. I thought it was all great.
What they had Palpatine said, like I will say another thing that I did like about the movie. They did not butcher Palpatine the slightest. He feels exactly how he should feel. Bringing back Palpatine was like they made him fit well. Like I said, they made Palpatine work extremely well in the film. I really liked him in the film. JJ made a good Star Wars movie. It's clear he wanted Snoke to be Palpatine originally.
It almost feels like Palpatine's arc throughout the movie is supposed to be Snoke's arc. It almost feels like that because JJ hypes up Snoke as being this all-powerful being throughout 7, and then you get to 8 and Rian Johnson makes him look like a shrimp, and he just gets like,
okay, he looks powerful. He just gets owned. That's all. Who's left to be that guy for your epic final battle? I mean,
Mace Windu.
The youngling that Anakin didn't kill in Episode 3. I literally, did you see the face swap stuff with Snoke, like the transformation? That cracks me up. But literally, Ryan dug JJ into a hole, at least as far as what JJ wanted his movie to be. It was hard to make it with what Rian Johnson did. The third film was destined to be really, if you're following the track of The Last Jedi, really weird. Like, for a final, it wasn't going to be a super bombastic one at that, you know? Which, I mean, I wouldn't have minded, if you want me to be honest. One thing I want to mention now that I think about it, actually, that did bother me. Oh boy, Star Wars and its planet-destroying weapons. Guys, we got a whole fleet. That would have been enough. They showed so many Star Destroyers there. That was enough to be imposing, you know? Actually, I think they made it too crazy big. It was so big that the Resistance should have died faster in their battle. Like, literally, it was stupid how long they survived. But then again, that's just getting stupid and nitpicky, and it's just a fun movie. You know, it's fine. I really don't care about that part. It's just...
Well, wait, there's never been a planet destroyer in Star Wars that has achieved what it was, like, the full, what it was supposed to achieve.
Well, Starkiller Base actually did its job, actually.
It didn't do its entire job, but it did.
Actually, it kind of did in 7. The other ones, you're right. Death Star 1 and 2 did not.
They were planning to keep going with Starkiller Base. I think that's my point.
I mean, yeah, but the primary goal, like the main reason they built it was to destroy the New Republic core worlds, and they did. They wiped them out, which means they had full control. Even without Starkiller Base. Starkiller Base was bad. However, it wasn't obviously it was really bad, but it wasn't so bad that they were toast. You know, they didn't set them back. The Death Star 1 and 2 were planned to be around a really long time. Their goal was intimidation over a long period of time, and they both failed that because they were destroyed. And even honestly, the Final Order, the fleet as well. You're right. They also failed their job. They were supposed to be basically holding a gun to the head of every planet. I don't know. The whole Final Order fleet. I had no issue with it being a giant fleet, or issue with him just creating one out of nothing. Pretty much. I mean, literally, like. It's irrelevant to the movie in that sense. It's just nitpicky at that point. But giving them all a planet-destroying weapon just feels like, I mean, okay. It's been done to death in Star Wars. to the point to where it feels like, oh, it's kind of intimidating, I guess, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like we're kind of desensitized to the idea of like a planet destroyer simply because of how many other planet destroyers have been made in Star Wars.
It's the fourth time we've had a planet destroyer as the main oh no of the movie, or one of the main oh nos. I guess in Rise of Skywalker, it technically isn't. I guess you could say it's Palpatine more so than the actual fleet. Uh, However, the fleet's like a major part of it. But still, I just think it's like, man, guys, really, is that the best you could come up with? Does it have to be a planet killer weapon? I'm sure there's something else out there that you guys could have thought of as far as planet killing weapons. Like, it didn't have to be a planet killing weapon because in 4, it's like, oh, dude, that's crazy, you know? That's like actually, it was actually like a big deal. You could feel the tension with it. In 6, admittedly, like building a second one was a bit like, you know, even in 6, there really should not have been even a Death Star 2, but I mean, they made it work within the movie, and I guess it's the same thing with this. You can make the same point. So, and it really is a nitpicky detail. So at the end of the day, it ain't one of my main points, which are just the implementation of Palpatine's and uh, pacing in the worst. Third, in fact, the middle area of the movie is actually probably my favorite part.
Yeah, the middle area is pretty strong, I think. I think that the middle area, I think that it starts off with so much exposition that you're just left overwhelmed. But once you get to the middle of it and you're trying, like you're actually advancing the plot forward in episode 9 as opposed to really JJ's version of episode 8 in the first hour of the movie, I feel like it's actually like you actually get stuff done.
I think that like it's once they land on that planet with Babu Frick and the girl, like the bounty hunter girl. That planet, once they get there, that's when it like I thought that planet was super cool, by the way. It gave me big Solo vibes actually.
It did, yeah.
It was I thought it was cool. Babu Frick was pretty funny. C3PO also, the majority of the movie was pretty funny. I'll be honest. C3PO actually like really he was really funny in this movie.
There were some good lines. I think my favorite one was there's like this quicksand looking thing. They get pulled through. They fall through the tunnel, and Poe Dameron's looking for Finn and Rey, and he's yelling out their names. And then 3PO says something like, "You didn't say my name, but I'm all right." And that just killed me.
And then when he starts talking about something at the festival when they're watching it, and he says something really dumb or something, and they all look back at him, and then he looks back too, and they're all like, it is a good moment actually. Like he made it work in the movie. Just that simple humor, which Ryan Johnson did not. The humor in The Last Jedi was a part I did not like about that movie. It was a lot better in as far as where it was placed and what the jokes were. They were more it was just funnier when they were there, and they weren't in parts where I was like, what, why are you putting a joke there? Oh, a lot of them were toward the beginning of the movie, or at least in sections where it worked. So that was cool. I liked that. Kylo Ren, best character in the movie. Like, and across the whole trilogy, he's probably one of the like he's the character that has the best 3 movie character arc change. You know, I think JJ did a really good job with his turn. Kind of, it was mirroring the time he killed Han, but instead of actually stabbing him, he threw it away. Even though like Han was only like a spirit or in his head, he still made the right choice afterwards. And I thought that whole just his arc, like they did a really good job with him in the movie, just in general. Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren's arc is interesting, and I think it's the best timed arc as far as it goes across all 3 episodes pretty well. we know he's like for sure 100% evil all the way up until say like the latter half of episode 8, and then we know he's kind of like on the edge.
He's on the fence by 8.
In episode 9, like you really start to see him like shift over, and it ends with him giving his life to save Rey, and it's the only time at the very end where he smiles in the entire trilogy.
Wild. I think his character overall, on the whole, I think it felt very complete. His arc. And Rey's is like it completed. I would have liked it better if she was not a Palpatine. In fact, they still could have made it work like easily with the whole like, even though like the whole Jedi, her kind of like embodying all the past Jedi powers. I was very happy when I heard Hayden Christensen.
Dude, hearing all those voices,
They had
Guinness,
a lot.
Alex Guinness,
Ewan McGregor.
Ian McGregor.
Ahsoka was there too, which I was surprised.
It was nice to hear all of them again.
Right, it's nice to hear just a lot of like a nice little. It is a bit fan service, but I mean,
Dude,
I love that.
that's
It was
100% fan service, and you know what? I don't care.
I love it. I love it. It was great.
It's fantastic.
And honestly, the movie is just fun at the end of the day. And I do have my gripes. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie. The Last Jedi is such a conflicted. I think The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker are very similar as far as my actual overall opinion. Overall, they're both fine. And people see this is a really hot take actually, because people despise The Last Jedi or they love it, and I think it's just fine. And the same things about Rise of Skywalker, because Last Jedi, the thing is with The Last Jedi, it could have been so good. It just had a lot of really, really bad things. I mean, really bad things that just, from the whole cantina just mess, just being, it just felt like a distraction to the whole, like the comedy being abysmal, to them killing off Snoke was awesome in the movie, but it was one of those things like, whoa, that was sick, but what have you done? You've kind of just toasted the trilogy here. I don't know. And then some people really hate Luke's death. I thought it was fine. I mean, it was impactful enough for like he saved the Resistance from complete and total annihilation, including his sister, by the way. So that's an important thing. By projecting himself half across the galaxy, something no one's ever done before. When he told Rey earlier in that movie, that like projecting yourself just a little bit for like a small distance is like she might die from it, and he does it across the entire galaxy. I thought it was decent, but that's me getting a little bit off track. The Last Jedi, it's more of a combo of really good things that I liked and really bad, and it just all combos to okay. And then you've got The Rise of Skywalker, which is just, it's more consistent than The Last Jedi. Easily. It's more consistently good.
Luke's death in 8 frees up his character in 9. Rian Johnson basically said, like, you can either use Luke after this or you don't. Like, it's not gonna, like he really opened it up just for however JJ wanted to interpret it. On top of that, I think that it's important to note that JJ Abrams was not actually initially announced to direct this film. It was a different guy, and then Colin Trevorrow left, and then JJ picked it up. That was in 2017. That's what Wikipedia is saying before. That was before Last Jedi.
Interesting.
Literally the next day after he left, J.J. Abrams was like, yep, I'm directing it.
He really enjoyed making 7. I do know that. The sequel trilogy on the whole now that it's all done, now it's all said and done, it's all right. People are going to hate it. I feel like it does. Last Jedi really reminds me of a prequel movie, if you want me to be honest. It reminds me of Attack of the Clones. That's what it reminds me of. Attack of the Clones has some really awesome parts, but some really, really bad parts. They're very similar in that regard, in my opinion.
Well, on that issue, what's the worst trilogy then?
Okay.
Is it the
That's all personal preference. Minus, you can't say it's the original trilogy, or else.
Oh, for sure. Are the prequels better or are the sequels better?
If you're asking me, I'm gonna say the prequels because I love the prequels, even though they are not the best movies. I like them, and what they do for Star Wars is really good. Like Star Wars 1 through 6, it just feels great in my opinion. My only problem with 7, 8, and 9, actually, now looking at this thing in the big picture, is that it like 6 is kind of like that victory over Palpatine is kind of trivialized, you know? Because it feels like 1 through 6 is a complete like you watch the Skywalker like name amount like it's a redemption arc and the manipulation by Palpatine, you know, and it all ends in 6. Except it doesn't because Palpatine's still alive. If he wasn't alive, you could still make it. You could just say it's like it's just a continuation of the Skywalker line, but then you bring Palpatine and I get they were trying to make it feel more complete, but honestly, I liked it better when it felt like kind of like a epilogue type deal, you know?
I'm gonna have to say the prequels, but it's because I'm so much more interested in a lot more of the characters in the prequels and how their arcs could have developed than I ever really was for any of the main characters in the sequels. Like I felt like what you said about how like the prequels did some really good things for Star Wars. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like with the whole thing with like the Clone Wars, I think that's like that's super good. I think that's a great like era to bring about in Star Wars canon.
Yeah, the lore and the uh like just the fall of the Republic is just such I love it so much. And the Clone Wars as well, just the whole political and military sides of it. It was like it's an actual in Star Wars a actual extreme scale war, and I thought it was super cool. The thing is, I think the main reason that I feel the way I do about the prequels and why they feel so. I think part of it is because of the Clone Wars TV show being just incredible. Um, I don't know. I think that it really helps out the prequel trilogy and helping it feel more complete and getting those side arcs that you naturally kind of like, well, what about this? You know, it bridges that because the gap between 2 and 3, it gives a lot of the stuff that happens in 3 a lot more impact and just gravity after watching the slow decline. Like you actually do feel bad for Anakin at the end of watching 2, the Clone Wars, and 3. It does it like, without it. Like it almost rushes so fast through the Clone Wars period that it makes Anakin feel a bit whiny because it feels very drastic or obvious, either one or the other, like a drastic shift or just. I think the Clone Wars helps that like transition from like I don't know. It helped it feel more rationalized. The show does, and I really love that it does that for it, and it's what it makes the prequels my favorite era. It also helps that I grew up watching it all.
It also helps that just about every quote from the movie is a good meme.
It is.
Really, just pick and choose.
Honestly, and it's actually anything anyone says in the movies at this point. And notice I say the prequel era is my favorite. The original trilogy movies are, if you're looking from a strictly movie standpoint, they're leagues better movies.
Oh, as far as like special effects and like use of technology,
No, just in general, like writing, like the prequels are plagued by poor writing, and the acting is for the most part good in the prequels. I think the main problem with the acting is that it's not contextualized correctly because of the fact that, like, but that's me just getting off on a tangent about how to fix the prequel movies, which honestly, there's no use in fixing them. I think they're fine the way they are. Even being not the best as far as films go. I love the era a lot. And honestly, maybe the Resistance show will do a lot more for the era and make me actually started really getting into it. But I mean, it's still directed by Dave Filoni, and that man, I trust him with anything Star Wars. After the Clone Wars and Rebels being as great as they are, the fact that he's making another one in the Resistance era, already they've done something that I do like, and then it's that the main character, like they start the show before Starkiller Base, like before all of that. And here's a small spoiler for Resistance, so skip ahead maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. In the final episode of the first season, I know this because I've been reading about the show. I haven't really been watching it just because I like to keep up with Star Wars stuff. You know me, resident Star Wars nerd. But anyway, it ends the second season with the first season. I mean, with the destruction of the Hosnian Prime system by Starkiller Base. Like Starkiller Base destroying those planets is the last episode. Like, and it happens kind of in the background, and you know what's going on as the viewer, but the characters are like they don't know what's going on. And this is from an outside perspective. Like they're watching First Order stormtroopers watch a broadcast of General Hux's speech. It's pretty cool, actually, and it's a very interesting moment watching that from a different perspective, more of getting the more galactic perspective on something like that happening. Uh, I don't know. It Dave Filoni knows how to make Star Wars. I'll just say that, and it's evident by those shows. And even if you haven't seen them, if you watch The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are running. The Mandalorian is a beautiful show, and it's because Dave Filoni is running the show. At least as far as he's helping with the creative direction. Jon Favreau's an awesome director who loves Star Wars.
He writes it too, right?
Right, he does. He writes, and he's done a fantastic job so far. Like the other directors, like Rick Famuyiwa and Deborah Chow, also have done phenomenal jobs with all the episodes, in my opinion. The main reason why I'm actually like, I would be a lot more bummed out that Rise of Skywalker is and not glorious as a Star Wars fan. It's really just because The Mandalorian's amazing, and I know I have a bunch more shows going down the pipeline. The Kenobi TV show is coming out at some point, and it's directed by Deborah Chow, who I am affirmed now who is a good, like, I trust, I would say I trust her after her directing some, she directed the last Mandalorian episode, if you've seen that, which was fantastic.
I'm actually behind on The Mandalorian, so don't spoil anything. I still haven't watched it.
Did you watch the third episode?
I'm 3 episodes in for sure. I don't know how far past that I am.
I know you watched this one. It's the one.
It's with Jetpack Gunner, right?
Yes, it's with Jetpack Gunner. That episode was directed by Deborah Chow.
Yeah, she did a great job with that. Holy cows.
That episode was really good, and the most recent one also is super good. And I think that at least I believe that's the one she directed. I'm like pretty sure that's the one she directed. I might be wrong, but I'm like 100% sure. I know she directed the most recent one, and she's done a really good job. And I basically, to sum it up, there's a lot of good Star Wars content coming down the pipeline, and there's a lot of good Star Wars content coming out now that I'm not dependent on the movies to be good because the TV shows are good, and I know they'll keep being good. So yeah, I'm I'm not exactly super bummed out or anything. Because Rise of Skywalker it's a perfectly fine movie. I like it, but it's just I don't know. There was a time in my life I know when if I had watched that movie, I would have been quite. And if it was a different time and there weren't a bunch of Star Wars stuff coming out, I would have been a lot more disappointed with it being not glorious.
Well, I think that's the thing that's like benefiting Star Wars is just having all of this content to work with now. I think that's the exact opposite. The exact opposite thing is what's hurting the Marvel franchise is what do you do that follows such a big cultural event as Infinity War and Endgame? Like, not to go too much into Marvel, but like where do you go now? Like,
Yeah, honestly, you can do prequels and stuff like that, which is kind of what they're doing with Black Widow. I think that movie's going to be good, but
I don't know.
yeah, it's hard to make stuff too much stuff after that. I think they did a good job with Far From Home, but I don't want to get too far on the Avengers track.
Yeah, the point is that like Avengers is having a problem because they're used to having like several movies come out a year, and fans are used to that. But now you finish that entire arc, every arc, really.
Yeah, they all amounted to that movie.
Yeah, and then now it's just gone. There's a Marvel movie coming out next year, but like there's only one Marvel movie that came out this year.
Endgame came out this year, and Far From Home.
Far From Home. I'm dumb.
It's only 2 movies. And they were very quick in succession. Like, but Star Wars. I always have thought Star Wars ever since I watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. Star Wars what made me really fall in love with Star Wars is the movies made me like Star Wars, and I enjoyed Star Wars. What made me stick with Star Wars, is the TV shows. I don't know, there's something, about the Star Wars universe that's just I love it, and, I think these TV shows are just great for showing that, especially for those that aren't really too into the animated, shows. They can more easily get into something like The Mandalorian, which is right down that alley, just it's live action, and, being live action, it's fantastic. I love having live action Star Wars TV shows. I'm so happy that they've started to do this, but it's definitely working out for 'em. Mandalorian is a smash hit. Isn't it one of the best-selling TV shows? Pretty much like streaming TV shows.
Yeah, there's some stat that it beats Stranger Things on.
The Mandalorian dethroned it as the top streaming TV show in the United States, uh, for November, which is the first time it had been broken in 5 months, straight. Like, it had a 5-month streak. This is according to Business Insider.
Yeah.
Um, but, it was a top streaming show in the US, um, which is pretty crazy. So and it goes to show after the first, episode or 2, they announced that they're making season 2.
Oh yeah, dude. It didn't
So,
take them long
yeah,
at all.
yeah, no, they're like, "Yeah, we gotta keep working on this," and Jon Favreau is probably so pleased because I know he enjoyed making it,
Yeah.
from, watching interviews and stuff, and just reading, he, it was something he really enjoyed to making. Plus, Jon Favreau, he's kind of he made the Iron Man movies, and then I don't know what he's done after that, other than just kind of co-direct. He showed he hasn't directed a big film since those movies. I don't think.
Well, he's
I don't.
acted a little bit. He's happy.
Yeah, he's acted in a bunch of films, but not. I mean, I want to fact check myself on this. But I know that this is big for him. I do know that, but very very cool. I like where Star Wars is going, at least as far as TV shows. As far as movies are concerned, I'd love for them to make some Old Republic stuff. I don't think that going forward is really slippery. I think for them, at least as far as movies go. I swear, there better not be a 10-8 and a 10-11-12.
Well, I was thinking about that. I would so much rather them make spin-off movie after spin-off movie than ever try to make another trilogy, just because this is George Lucas's plan. He initially had this set for 12 movies, but they condensed it down to 9. This has been his plan, and it needs to be completed. This needs to be the end of Star Wars movies that are episode 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. They need to start working inside of the Star Wars universe and make spin-off movies, develop characters. The nice thing about sci-fi and fiction is that really you have infinite space to work with. There are no walls. You live in a universe where there are thousands upon thousands of planets. There's always somewhere to explore. Maybe go explore another nondescript desert planet. I don't care.
You can do a lot with it, and basically you can turn it into a lot of different subgenres within the science fiction, because Star Wars is so large. Like The Mandalorian being literally a Western, but Star Wars. I mean, that's an easier translation than some things, some genres. But I think that they really they have a lot of freedom to make movies. I really want them to give a lot more freedom to um, some directors to do different eras uh, than what we're used to. Maybe I think Old Republic is something they should explore. Definitely. 100%. Though I would want them to be careful with it because Old Republic is something that has stuff alluding to it, right? the sequels had nothing alluding to like stuff after, so they could literally do a lot. They could do pretty much whatever. Um, this requires a delicate hand, someone who knows Star Wars a bit more. But I'd love to see them do it. Even in the TV show form, I'd still enjoy it. But I think that Star Wars, seeing them explore that or making some spin-off movies. Look, Solo may not have had the reaction they wanted, but oh boy, I wish they would keep making them. But I know that stuff like Solo is going to be relegated to TV shows for now. Which honestly, looking at the Mandalorian, I think I like that better because I think they get to explore more anyway than they can in like an hour and a half. But and like I actually really like Rogue One. However, you know, uh, I think that show with Cassian Andor and K2SO, that's gonna be a fun show. I'm looking forward to that because K2SO, his humor in Rogue One was good. It really worked. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. I think Star Wars is basically to sum up. I think Star Wars is going down a pretty good path on the whole, and Rise of Skywalker. It's an all right movie. I like it, but it could be better. But at the end of the day, I really don't care. Star Wars is gonna keep being good. Star Wars is not quote unquote dead. Um, I'm excited to see what is in store for us now that the sequel trilogy is. Please don't make a 10, 11, 12. Please, Kathleen Kennedy. Oh my. I swear. You make a 10, 11, 12. I'm gonna go watch them, and I'm gonna be sad, but I'm gonna go watch them. But I'll be really sad watching them. Okay, remember that. All right. So yeah, I think. Would you say that? Do you have anything else to say on the topic?
Yeah, I think you've covered most of what I've said, or what I wanted to say. um, this in this entire podcast, that's incredibly disorganized, just in general. But
It's really just me ranting about Star Wars and rambling on for an actual millennia. That's what it is. Which I mean, with Star Wars, I can do that. So
I think that Star Wars is in a good spot right now. I think they have leeway to do kind of whatever, wherever they want to go next. I think that shows like Mandalorian and Rebels, right, or Resistance.
Resistance is the animated one. I think it'll do well in the end, but like basically they've got a lot of shows in the pipeline.
Yeah, there's a lot coming down the pipeline. There's a lot that they want to do. And back to the original purpose of this episode, Nine is not a bad movie. I don't. I think that don't be like me and be deterred by the bad critic reviews and be like, oh, it's not going to be as good. Because it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed it, and I'll go see it again probably.
It's a fun movie. You will enjoy your time watching it. If you're a Star Wars fan especially, because it's just a fun movie to sit there and watch. Uh, my like the gripes are I'd say you can overlook them. Like the pacing is not a problem that affects the entire movie. Uh, and the real reason I don't like the pacing is because I just wish we could have camped on just a little bit longer on some things in that first third, but we didn't get the chance to.
And really, all we're doing is like the plot is pretty good. Like if you look at stuff just generally, like it's there's nothing that like does there's no box that doesn't get checked. Like it checks a lot of boxes. Really, all we're doing is just like, yeah, it works. It's safe. We're just kind of nitpicking it a little bit.
Being the mega Star Wars fan that I am, I'm gonna end up nitpicking it a little bit. But like at the end of the day, there's only two gripes that even matter to me, and they don't ruin the movie for me. I enjoy it. And I'm sure there are people who literally know about those things or aware of them and actually don't even care in the slightest. And that is a-okay because the movie it's good. It's good. I would say it is worth any Star Wars fan's time at the very least.
I'd say it's worth a lot, like more than just that. I think it's worth like a lot of people's time just in general. Like it's not. I think it has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes and it has an 86. It has a 50% critic score. It has an 86% audience score, which is basically the opposite of what happened with The Last Jedi, which was like what 90% critic, 40% audience or something like that.
Right. That was something like that.
Yeah, but it's a good movie. It's worth your time.
Yeah. I've said enough Star Wars things to make like 4 different podcasts at this point.
I'm interested to see the percentage of time you talked during this episode compared to me.
I'm gonna toss a wild number, 72%.
Well, I'll fact check that once I get around to editing it. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you, if you made it this far, for listening to our long rant about Star Wars, and specifically episode 9, but it just generalized really to the Star Wars universe in general. And I think we talked about The Last Jedi for a considerable part of it.
Yeah, okay, I feel like you can't talk about Rise of Skywalker without talking about Last Jedi a little bit, just based on how they're connected and how The Last Jedi's affected it. But we talked about a lot of Star Wars. It's Rise of Skywalker, but yeah, Rise of Skywalker and the miscellaneous Star Wars talking. Well,
That's going to be the title of the podcast.
I hope that y'all found what I said to be somewhat coherent and not a rambling Star Wars fan mess, because that's kind of what it was. Hey, John had some good points that were probably a little bit coherent.
Dude.
I mean, at least, according to at least my number, you have approximately 28% good podcast in here that is coherent and also understandable for any viewer. So
hopefully Michael Bublé understood this rant.
Honestly, maybe he can like turn it into, I don't know, 50,000 albums.
It's just just Michael Bublé just releases our this specific podcast episode in bits and pieces as singles and albums for the rest of time.
For the rest of his life, even posthumously. Like,
you thought Michael Bublé was dead, but here are the last 15 minutes of episode 4 of the Big Tech Guys podcast in album format.
Man, I swear, we're gonna get him to watch this podcast at some point.
We gotta make more episodes. We gotta be on the up and up.
Yeah, honestly, we gotta get visible.
Yeah.
Well, I think
we've said
that
enough.
is. We have. I've said enough.
I'll conclude it then. Crap, I forgot how we do the outros.
We're done. Bye.
If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe if you'd like to see another episode in the next 6 months. Don't forget to share it if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud. Share it with your friends. Let them listen to Garrett's incoherent mess for the next hour. It's worth their time. Don't forget to follow our Twitter account for updates, even though I legitimately haven't tweeted from that account in decades. But you can go follow our Twitter for updates. We'll let you know. We got an episode on the way and stuff like that down there. Anyways, this is a long-winded outro. We've been talking for a while. Goodbye.
Yep. Is it over?
Now it is.